Vegan is the new norm. Hello everybody, welcome to Royce Airs episode 12, where I am joined with Mr. Tim Canova. Stay tuned. Hello everybody, welcome to Royce Airs. I hope that your day is going well. Today it's a beautiful Tuesday, so I'm glad that you survived that good Monday. Hope everybody's just having a fantastic time today. Mr. Tim, are you having a fantastic time?
Wonderful day today.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Tim, before we get started, man, I just have to compliment you. You are ridiculously handsome. How often do you get that?
Not very often at all.
I don't believe you
that
at all.
That is the truth. That's us clean-shaven head guys. We don't get it enough.
Wow. You know, I actually started shaving my head at one point too, but I also had this really thick mustache at that time. So people always mistake me for Steve Harvey.
Oh.
So I stopped doing it.
Interesting one. Interesting.
Yes. That adds about a good 40 years to my life. So, yeah, we went ahead and grew back out the hair. Mr. Tim, there was something that I was hoping that you would do with me. A good tradition that we do here on Royce Ayers Show. You ready?
Yes.
Feels so good to be alive, baby. Can I get a hello? Oh, Tim, you got to do it with me, man.
Okay.
You ready? We're going to try one more time.
You got it.
Feels so good to be alive, baby. Can I get a hello? There. Tim.
I'm new at this, Royce.
It's okay, man. It's okay. I won't judge you. I don't judge you at all. Tim, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Well, as you know, I'm running for Congress right now from South Florida.
Running for Congress.
Yes.
For South Florida.
Yes. I'm a law professor at Nova Southeastern University. I have been for some years, and just got swept up in the political moment in recent years.
Gotcha.
And I ran for Congress 2 years ago, not just challenging anyone, but my local congresswoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who at the time was the chair of the Democratic National Committee. And we're running against her again, but this time not in a Democratic primary that's closed, but as an independent. We'll be on the ballot in November.
So you switched from the Democrat Party to the Independent Party?
Well, it's not actually a party. It's officially non-party affiliation, an NPA, which means I am independent of all parties.
Gotcha.
Like most of the voters these days. They say that something like 45% of those who are eligible to vote are now without any political party.
45%?
Yes, and among younger voters, it's up to about 70%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I would have never guessed those stats, mainly because I guess kind of what's shown in media.
Sure. Well, I think the media has been propping up this duopoly.
Yes.
The Democratic Party and the Republican Party both have been losing a lot of support over recent years. I think people are getting fed up with the kind of corruption that both parties show all the time, and parties that don't address the real problems, the problems that we face every day.
True. Yeah. Very true. Even whenever as soon as I turned 18, I registered as independent, never joined one of the parties just because I felt like, it's funny, my family, they're all Democrat, obviously. But then the school that I went to, it was all Republican. So I always got both of the sides of the coins. You know, and I just didn't feel like I could truly pick aside and say, yes, I am 100% Democrat, or yes, I am 100% Republican.
Well, you got there before me, but I'm catching up.
So do you feel that switching to, no party affiliation, running as independent, is going to be a pro or a con? Is it going to help or hurt your campaign?
I think it's going to help tremendously, and it already is. We rely only on contributions from the grassroots, small donor contributions. Folks are going online to our website at timcanova.com. The last campaign, because it was such an epic David versus Goliath struggle, and we got a lot of national media attention because it was right in the moment when Bernie Sanders' campaign was battling it with the Hillary Clinton campaign. So we were kind of a microcosm of what was happening. We got so many small donor contributions that it's such a contrast with Wasserman Schultz, who relies completely on large donors, corporate donors, basically. So the Democratic Party has a very close primary, and we were at every disadvantage there. Now, suddenly running as an independent, all those non-party affiliation, all those younger voters who are independent, they can vote for us now. So it opens up the conversation much wider. It opens up the kind of voters that we can approach as well.
It's funny because a lot of people who know me in real life, they know that I know this much about things that are going on. And whenever it comes to politics, I know about this much. So whenever I told people that you would be on our show, they said, Royce, how are you going to, relate to a politician? Or how are you going to relate to anybody who is in politics? But a lot of them guessed it, that you are vegan. Mm-hmm. So I just want to kind of talk about your vegan journey to start off with, and then we'll get back into everything as well too.
I think it's a typical one. There are a lot of different ways that people end up adopting a plant-based diet. And I was a lawyer in New York City when I started to move in that direction. I moved very suddenly, actually. I was vegetarian for a number of years. And over the years, as I became more educated about the way the factory farms were operating and the condition of the foods that most of America was eating, it just really reinforced the move towards a plant-based diet. And I've been completely plant-based for more than a dozen years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, a lot of folks, they learn more and more, and they come to learn that the factory farms are contributing more to climate change than all the fossil fuel industries combined at this point. So we take a look at this kind of an economy we have, where we are mass producing animal products in torturous kind of conditions for the animals. And it's not good for the animals, obviously. It's not good for human beings.
Exactly.
And the health of people. And it's not good for the planet.
So do you take those same principles, those same morals, and incorporate them into your campaign?
Sure. Listen, we've been subsidizing big farming interests for years. I'm talking about billions and billions of dollars over the years of subsidies. And what are we subsidizing? It's mostly very unhealthy foods. It truly is. Like corn syrup is now in everything. And
yes.
Federal subsidies of corn have helped push the price of corn so far low that they can synthesize it and put it in everything. Instead, we should be subsidizing organic farming, local farmers. We shouldn't have an economy, whether it's an agriculture economy or an industrial economy or a tech economy, that's just dominated by a few big firms. That's not really a healthy kind of capitalism.
For sure. I'm glad that you are incorporating that into, your campaign.
Sure. It's part of our agenda. Absolutely. And I think a lot of folks are gravitating towards this. People realize that the kind of economy we've had, which has been very dependent not just on big farming interests, but also big oil and gas, that it's been so bad for the economy, and that we see other parts of the other countries in the world that are beginning to convert very quickly to solar, for instance, solar
Yes.
and wind. And we have a lot of catching up to do in this country.
So what makes you different from a lot of the other politicians that we, would run into? Is that, on your page, it says, it has a slogan there. What was that slogan?
Progress for all?
Progress. There was another one that I was wanting to refer to. I'm going to take a quick look at it real fast.
Okay.
It said something in regards to not your average politician. Let's take a look.
Well, the average politician, they say that public approval of Congress is now in the single digits. So certainly I hope I'm not going to be like the average.
This one, it says, but not politics as usual.
Well, it's not politics as usual. And I already kind of referred to it a little bit earlier, that the way we raise our money is so different. During our last campaign, 60 Minutes had an episode in which they focused on how members of Congress raise money for their campaigns. And they showed that these folks they go to call centers and they dial for dollars, and they're making these calls up to 30 hours a week. So it's a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And they could go to Congress with all of the most idealistic intentions, let's say. But if you spend 30 hours a week, each week in and out for months and months, calling and speaking to very wealthy folks to ask them to contribute to your campaigns, you start looking at the world through their eyes as well. And you stop looking at the world through the eyes of average folks. And you see it play out in so many ways right now. The past 10 years have been great years for Wall Street, but for most of Main Street and Martin Luther King Jr. streets, right? We're talking about for most Americans, these have not been good years. This is year 10 of a Great Depression for most people. The unemployment rate is so low because nobody wants to leave their crappy jobs to go looking for another crappy job. I know it sounds a little harsh to say, but I got to tell you, people of all ages, I see them, people with advanced degrees driving for Uber, people working part-time consulting jobs, wishing they could get a higher paying job with some security.
For sure. 18
to 34-year-olds who are more likely to be living at home with their parents than starting families and living on their own. So these are tough times, and I think the political class, they are so in bed and tied up with these corporate interests that they don't see the world the same way as it is for most people.
Tough times indeed. It is funny because where I live, it's a lot of different millennials. We just kind of congregate, and people will often say that, why are there so many of you living in that type of structure? It's because we can't actually afford to live out by ourselves, because once you factor in rent and once you factor in student loans and just all these different things.
Absolutely. Look what's happening in our lifetime. The life expectancy in this country is actually beginning to fall, finally.
Really?
That does not happen often in a society.
Wow.
The average life expectancy as far as longevity goes.
Yeah.
The suicide rate has continued to climb. It's particularly alarming among young folks, but also among veterans. The opioid overdose death rate, we're talking about over 100 people a day in this country now. This is a generation that's depressed, isolated socially, which is very ironic, given that we all feel that we're connected through the internet, and yet there's less face-to-face interactions that people have. So, these are, I think, the weak economy just exacerbates all of these trends.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to throw my different events, because people will acknowledge and wow, I haven't been out at an event such as this that, promotes a positive lifestyle. Pretty much any events that I always have, they have the vegan name on them, just to let people know, even whenever, it really doesn't matter what walk of life they come from, whether they're real estate, or if they're just a creative artist or something, or even politicians such as yourself. How did the word politician, the name, the label?
Yeah, that rankles me.
It rankles you. Would you prefer that I use something else?
Yeah, citizen running for office.
Citizen running for office. I'm going to stick with that. I like that too, because even me saying it, I'm like, yeah.
To me, it connotates somebody who's professionally doing this and making a lot of money doing it. And, my experience is quite different, I suppose.
For sure. I'm going to take a look at some of our comments. I see we have a few of here brewing. Let's see. How can we get the money out of the political process, Tim, from Miss Sandy Simmons?
I think the first way you get money out of the political process, especially we're talking about corporate money, is to contribute to folks who are raising money just from grassroots like I am. You start supporting candidates who want to ban money, corporate money from politics. We need your support. So I urge folks to go online to timcanova.com, check out our issue page, our statements on a whole range of issues. And while you're there, if you can throw a few dollars our way and spread the word to others. When you support a grassroots campaign, that's the best way to start changing our politics. We need to overturn Citizens United. If I'm elected, when I'm elected, that's what I'll be working to do. I think Congress can do it through simple legislation, while at the same time stripping the courts of their appellate jurisdiction. And I'm talking to a bunch of experts about that. So there are some strategies that might be attainable if enough progressives get elected to Congress.
I like that.
And that's why we're supporting progressives, whether they happen to be running as Democrats, like I ran last time around, or if they're running as independents, like I am now, or some other third party. If they're progressive and they stand for the people, we stand with them.
For sure. Mr. Roger Campbell says, are fungi underutilized in the United States? More specifically, do you think we should increase funding for researchers like Paul Stamets, who have found antibiotic and antiviral compounds in fungi?
Oh, yeah, I've been reading about fungi. I have. It's fascinating.
Tell me some about fungi, because as I was reading that, I was feeling a little bit scared, a little bit nervous. Like, what are they putting in my comments?
I'm no expert on it, but within the past 2 weeks, I've gotten a couple of articles and saw a TED Talk about it. And I can't remember who gave the TED Talk. Maybe it's the fellow that your audience was referring to. But it was about the transformative effects of fungi. And I'm like, are they talking about psychedelic mushrooms? But apparently they're not. Apparently they're not. This is just some kind of fungi that people would be consuming for health effects. Yeah.
Have you ever done any research on different fungi as far as the whole psychedelic nature?
I really haven't. I've done a lot of research on the Federal Reserve and on public banking in the United States. That is my area of specialty as a law professor, and I can tell you exactly how I think we can finance a New Deal, a green and solar New Deal. Those are the kinds of things that I've been working on for years.
Would that be one of the first things that you do, if elected?
Absolutely, and already we're not elected yet, and we're supporting bills like HR 1000, which is a full employment bill, a big public works type of an approach, where the federal government would be subsidizing local school teacher salaries, helping our public schools directly, helping build infrastructure. And how would we finance it? We should have a national infrastructure bank like many other big countries do. Germany, Japan, and China have national infrastructure banks. And Barack Obama campaigned for one in 2008, and Bill Clinton campaigned for one in 1992. Unfortunately, when both of those Democrats got in, they weren't able to get an infrastructure bill through Congress. But that's what we need. We need a national bank. We need a Federal Reserve that works for Main Street and not just for Wall Street. And those are the kinds of things that I've been writing about for years.
I like that, for sure. We have even more. Miss Kathy Chadwell, she says, yes, we are. As a Green Party member, I am supporting Tim Canova and Dennis
Kucinich.
Yes. Hey.
Yes, he was on the ballot today, I believe, in Ohio for governor.
Oh, wow.
And we're supporting Dennis Kucinich as well. He's a great progressive champion. He was a member of Congress, and he was so great as a member of Congress. He voted against the Iraq War. He was one of the people who warned about the financial collapse before it happened.
Wow.
He would be a fantastic governor in Ohio. So I'm hoping that Ohioans come through for him.
For sure. So do you pretty much kind of network and communicate with a lot of the other, progressive candidates, the ones, who's doing more grassroots?
It's haphazard. On this trip, we came up to Tallahassee last week to qualify for the ballot, and we had events in Tallahassee and Gainesville and Orlando, and now we're off to Tampa and Sarasota. And at all of these spots, we're meeting with grassroots activists and some local progressive candidates. So we're all trying to help each other.
That's the way it's got to be done. That's what I respect a lot about what you've been telling me about your campaign, because it's kind of the same way that I run my LLC. It's the same way that I run even this show. It's just kind of a whole grassroots, starting from literally the bottom and just kind of, taking things as we go to get bigger, and just networking, helping out, not trying to, crush anybody in the...
Exactly.
So...
Well, and that's what's great about this progressive movement. You see a lot of people who devote so much of their time and effort, and they're in it for the right reasons. It's not to get rich. It's to help spread the consciousness and to help have very positive changes in our lifetime.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, do you think that this whole... How much help do you think it's going to be as far as you running for a political office? Do you feel that's one of the biggest contributions that you can do to kind of see, America evolve into something beautiful?
That what would be one of the biggest changes?
Or would, you running for political office be one of the best contributions to just kind of see us...
Well, I think it's an important campaign we have. I do. I think it's a bellwether, and it was 2 years ago when we challenged such an entrenched incumbent. And I think a lot of folks looked at our race 2 years ago, and it gave them the kind of courage and inspiration they needed to step up and make similar challenges wherever they are in this country. I know I was influenced so heavily by seeing Bernie Sanders run for office. It really inspired me to step up. So I think we're all part of this together, and everybody has got to be pushing their own through their comfort zone, you can say. I never ran for an office before, and here I am doing it for the second time and not giving up. There are a lot of folks who never contributed to a political campaign before 2016, and then suddenly they're going online and donating to Bernie Sanders or to my campaign or some other campaign. There are a lot of people who never knocked on a door or made phone calls for a campaign who are suddenly doing that. And this is what it's going to take. This is a real people's movement. I always say this is a movement of movements, that you've got environmentalists and peace activists and people for racial justice and criminal justice reform, all kinds of movements that intersect with each other, part of a much larger movement, which I think is larger than even calling it a progressive movement. I think this is a movement to restore democracy in this country.
So do you have a particular audience that you're kind of going after as far as to collect your votes, or do you feel as though everybody should be voting for you?
Absolutely. That's what's the beautiful thing about being on the November ballot. Instead of competing in a very closed primary, party primary that's hidden in the dog days of the summer, now we're going to be able to appeal to Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Greens, Independents, no party affiliation, people of all ages. You know, so few people vote in that closed primary. You have to be registered Democrat and you have to be motivated enough to come out. At this point in time, most people are not registered Democrat or Republican now. So more and more people are rejecting both of these parties. They've been failures. They've been very corrupt. And that means to be on a ballot in November is just a great thing right now. We get to compete for everybody's vote and to try to hear what their problems are and to respond to them.
As far as a lot of the people who are close to you, have you been able to, do they know about your political party change? Do they agree with what you did, and do they feel as though it's going to help or hurt? What have been the critiques, I guess?
Well, you know, it's funny. One of my supporters not long ago said to me that when he first heard I had changed to independent, he thought it was a big mistake. And here we were just a few weeks later, and he sees that he was wrong. It felt right to me when we did it. We had some concerns about the outcome of the 2016 primary. We had a very large field operation where we were knocking on 10,000 to 12,000 doors a week, and our internal field numbers showed us doing far better than what the official results were. So we put in a public records request to inspect the ballots, and the Broward Supervisor of Elections stonewalled us for half a year. We brought a lawsuit to enforce our rights to inspect the ballots. While the lawsuit was pending, the Broward Supervisor of Elections defied the court and broke federal law and destroyed all the paper ballots.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is a case that's still playing out in the courts. It's still going to have political consequences. And the Democratic Party could not be bothered to even call for an investigation. So that was very much the last straw for me.
Wow.
Yeah. When you don't have confidence that the ballots are actually being counted and maintained properly, what is left to have faith and confidence in the democratic system and an election system? So I think they know that we're ready to sue if need be next time around, and we're hoping that this lawsuit brings some changes to the Supervisor of Elections office.
So just to rewind and put in layman's terms, it sounds like there was some foul play kind of with the...
Well, certainly with the maintaining the ballots, they destroyed them prematurely. These are federal offenses punishable by up to a year in prison. And I think the state consequences might even be more severe. So it does raise a lot of questions. Why someone would take such a risk and destroy ballots prematurely like that if they weren't covering something else up. And this is the problem we have in this country now. Fewer and fewer people have faith and confidence in the integrity of our elections. And we're dependent on these electronic voting machines, which is really a black box. You just have faith, and you're supposed to have faith and confidence that somehow the computers are not rigged and they're going to total things up properly. And it used to be much simpler in this country. For 200 years, we had paper ballots that were counted by hand in public at the local precinct level on election evening. And that's the way it is in most European democracies now. They've banned the electronic voting machines because they know they're easy to hack, right when the United States is moving in the other direction. So this is very distressing.
Wow. Do you feel as though we might go back to the paper ballot system?
I think we have to. I think until we do, we're going to have very rigged primaries and elections.
Wow. That sounds scary. Sounds kind of like the whole lotto system almost, where, well, we know that this set of numbers were the ones that were picked, but we'll do this one because anybody can hack that stuff.
Right.
As much as we say no, there's so many different firewalls and protection that is to not, but.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that should give us concern is that if you want to inspect the software of these electronic voting machines, you're not allowed. The software is proprietary. They're owned by these private vendors that are hired by the local boards of elections and supervisors of elections. So we've created this whole private internet security industry that we're just supposed to trust that they'll be neutral in elections, and we should trust the software and be content even though we can't inspect their software.
Wow.
Yeah.
That almost sounds like the whole... just a lot of things that are going on in society.
Yeah, that's true. And there are a lot of folks who want to have open source software as a way that citizens can actually monitor the software that's used in these electronic voting machines. So there's no shortage of ideas that are beginning to be expressed to try to clean up our elections. And I think election integrity is one of the most important issues, because if you can't solve that, then you're just not going to get to any of these other issues that are important. The corporate interests will just block you out.
Wow. Man, it motivates me to want to do something more for it, but then it's also kind of discouraging in a way that how some people don't want to leave the house because they don't feel that their vote matters anyways, but then whenever things like this are going on, how would you respond to those folks?
I would respond the most constructive thing that anyone in the world could do in hearing about this is go online to timcanova.com and contribute to our campaign. And you got a campaign that's going to fight not just for your vote, but to make sure that it's counted, a campaign that is willing to go to court to defend those rights to have your vote counted.
For sure. On the Royce Airs live broadcast, our main demographic of viewers watching is usually a whole bunch of vegans.
Oh, vegans, okay.
Yes, those crazy people.
Yeah.
Ooh, they make me sick. Just kidding. I'm one of you. Somebody's going to misquote that and throw it somewhere one day. But, so, as we're wrapping up, what would be something that you would let them know why they should get your support and your vote?
Sure. Well, first of all, I am one of you, and I've been on a plant-based diet for more than a dozen years, and I can personally attest to the health benefits of it. And we already discussed a little bit about how a plant-based economy fits into a progressive agenda. That if you really want to address climate change, you've got to start subsidizing, have federal support for the small farmer and organic farming and plant-based economy. If you want to move away from this economy that is not sustainable, that is environmentally terrible and terrible as far as climate change goes, you've got to start cutting those federal subsidies for these terrible industries, whether it's big oil and gas or it's big agriculture, creating corn for everything, for instance. I think that is part of our agenda, and folks who are vegan, I'm sure, can appreciate that. But I'll say that even if you're vegan and the only issues that really you're concerned about are factory farming and the welfare of animals and the rights of animals and taking care of animals and all of that, if that's your entire agenda, I would urge you to move beyond that agenda, because we're not going to solve any of those problems if you don't engage with the larger political struggle that's going on right now. That what's really at stake here is, corporate machine politics versus a people-oriented, holistic, healthy type of a politics. So folks have to go beyond just a vegan agenda or a plant-based agenda and start engaging with other groups that have common values, like the peace movement and the environmental movement and racial justice. And there are common enemies behind all of them. You see corporate interests that want to see the schools privatized, K-12. They want to see private prisons and a constant mass incarceration to fill the prison beds. They want to privatize water systems. All across the board, you see this conflict playing out. It's either a New Deal model that we stand for, where the public sector has the resources it needs to deliver the services that we expect and that we deserve, or you're going to have austerity and privatization and commercial gain picking out of your pocket every step of the way.
I think I'm glad you summed it up that way, because there are a lot of vegans that are just kind of all about the animals, and I let them know that there's so many other issues that are going on as well too, as far as, you know, just the environment, racial and social justice, and they all have kind of that same core element of just progression and evolving and moving into a more peaceful, compassionate, loving world.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
you know, Mr. Tim, I told you that this time would fly by with us here.
It really did, Royce. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the show. And please, one more time, just let everybody know how they can contact you if they want to donate, get involved, or just send you some hate mail.
We'll take any kind of mail. We'll take any kind of feedback on the issues. We mostly get love than hate, more
Good.
love than hate. But folks can go to timcanova.com. You can contribute small amounts to the campaign, but you can also do phone banking. We're going to be setting up phone banking for people all over the state and all over the country. And to spread the word. Spread the word on social media. We have a very active Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram and all that.
That is it, everybody. Make sure you go and like Mr. Tim Canova on Facebook. Thank you once again for coming on the show.
Royce. My pleasure.
And thank you all for coming and watching with us as well. I really, really appreciate it each and every single day. It really means a lot that you all get involved, that you all come and watch it every day at 2 p.m. If you want to get involved more heavily, please message our Royce Ayers Facebook page and go ahead and schedule an interview and go ahead and consider sponsoring with us as well too. Thank you so much for being a part, and best believe we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Royce Ashcroft signing out.